now about to witness the awesome, crushing might of wait for it. Knuckle Up! Yeah! Oh, my friends, welcome to a show that apparently never ends. Round number 360. I'm your host, Eugene S. Robinson, with the S standing for SOS. A terrible lassitude has fallen over Knuckle Up where you are today. As a result of substandard foods. And yet here we are. Bellator, Kimbo Slice, Shamrock, UFC, and the grand eloquent gesture of man. But first, this. I'm on my way back nowhere. I'm in my time and I could not see so clear. I'm taking a real good look at you. I'm taking a real good look at your face. Being payback will always nothing. There you go. Ladies and germs, ladies and gents, ladies and gentlemen, singular. The only gentleman listening to this show probably is a guy who's doing it. That's not true. What qualifies a gentleman these days? Aqua Velva, baby, always. So anyway, here we are. I think it's round 360. It's Father's Day. And on Father's Day, we got, on Father's Day, we got, I don't know, I'm parked. Yeah, it would be very strange if I was driving and people were, I'd be driving very slowly. It'd be low ride or slow if I was driving and people were walking up. But I am now parked in front of my house, and there are strange women walking up to the house, which is always a cause for super concern to me. I'm gonna lock the door and not get out of the car, mostly on account of got concerns about battery acid, and now she's going in her purse. All right, I'm very uncomfortable and uneasy. All right, I'm sorry. I'm gonna do the show from the safety and security of a place where I am armed. I'll be right back. All right. I need to explain my skittishness to you, lest you think that I am a victim of paranoia, yeah, that's right, victim of paranoia. I am party to paranoia, but not victim of paranoia, and that my skittishness. Now, I don't want to. I'm tempted to Donna Shalala myself on the show with the lunatic Hungarian who would call me and say, Eugene Robinson, I'm going to kill you. And apparently the worst curse for her, she used to delight in calling me a peasant. A peasant. Apparently this is a really bad word in Hungarian. I'm like, I give a shit. You know, I guess it's culturally contextual. So, you know, I see. Plus, I'm doing this show on a Sunday, So on a Sunday, you got people lurking around your gate on a Sunday. They could be Jehovah's Witnesses. My days are long gone of actually inviting Jehovah's Witnesses in. This is something I would do all the time. I would invite Jehovah's Witnesses in all the time. But I would only invite them in if there were women in the group. And then I would sit on the couch in my underwear and say, you can sit right here next to me while we talk about the good word. Yeah. And then they stopped coming by, And then I decided to try to sell them some stuff, upsell, Yeah, I have heard the good word, man, but let me ask you something. Have you ever thought about making money while you sleep? Now that's something. So I'm sorry that I had to cut the intro short and flee, but when there are older women lurking around the outside of the car, I get very skittish because it could be a face full of acid. You don't know what's going to happen. So now I'm in the safety of the studio. Here we go. So what I was saying is on this round number 360, Eugene S.O.S. Robinson, Eugene S. Robinson, UFC Fight Night Jajajic versus Penne, and then the backyard is filling up with motorcycles and Filipinos. That's great. Yeah, we got the property is big enough for everybody. There's a motorcycle gang in the back. I just saw 3 motorcycles pull in, so I don't know what's happening. But Jajajic and Penne, as well as this Bellator thing, and I was trying to explain to you my lassitude these days. I did just come back from training. That I did do. That happened. But I'm not usually this tired after training, So it's got. I mean, I got the fluids. I got some fluids here, but I'm gonna have to give credit to some of this because of that's the 4th motorcycle. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what? It's got nothing to do with me. Old ladies, battery acid, motorcycles, Filipinos. It's all a party. Anyway, this is round 360. I'm Eugene S. Robinson. We're going to talk about this fucking Bellator. Bellator 138. Listen, let me explain something to you. Everybody's picked over this. It's like showing up to Thanksgiving dinner, 4 hours late. And everything's been picked over. It's all right, though. It's all right, because what I'm seeing is that Bellator 138, it's almost sapped the will to live out of me. That I can't explain why I'm so tired today for any other reason. I can't think of any other reason why this lassitude is set upon my soul. I was good at jiu-jitsu, though. I came alive there for an hour and 40 minutes. But this Bellator 138, look, I know Scott Coker. I like Scott Coker. I respect. Okay, let's not get crazy. All right, I like Scott Coker. I know Scott Coker. Scott Coker has always been nice to me, which is more than I can say for my friend's Nazi father in Hamburg. Was not nice to me particularly, but he was a Nazi. So what do you expect? That was clumsy, I know. I just had to get it in there so I could stop thinking about it. And anyway, the Bellator 138, he's got. You know what it's like? It's like watching an unattractive woman put on makeup. Like, you can see where she's going with this thing, but you know the likelihood of her getting there is very low. So the Road Warrior walks out, dude comes out, walks out with Shamrock, and they're like all these little. Let me explain something to you. When he was doing Strike Force, he had a fighter in there called Daniel Puder. I'm sorry, must be mispronouncing his name. Puder. Like if you have a tea set made out of pewter, but Puder, Puder, and he had been on some reality show as a pro wrestler, but he was supposed to have had real chops. And Scott Coker had given him several fights in Strike Force, and he would show up. He would show up with a bunch of women in tow, and they would all have. They were called the Pewter girls, and they would have necklaces that said Pewter. All right, so he would show up with the girls, and then they had the necklaces and T-shirts, and they called themselves the Pewter girls, or I don't know whatever. And he had some certain, and I'm not saying he was a bad guy. Look, he would come over to the media table, and he'd be high-fiving and low-fiving all the media, and he'd be doing, showing up at the children's hospital, the sick kids would be looking at him like, yeah, hi, big dude. Hey, he fought heavyweight, and nice guy. Nothing bad to say about him, with the small exception of the fact that he couldn't fight worth a lick. And I get Scott Coker on Knuckle Up, and I said, finally at the end of the interview, I asked him, I said, hey man, I got one final question for you. What's the deal with Daniel? And he's like, oh, and he said, he laughs, letting me know that he knew that I was right. He laughed, but he in essence, he goes, there's certain market exigencies I gotta yield to, and one of those is if I gotta leverage all the celebrity I have in order to make this an event that people want to watch. If people want to watch Daniel Puder enough to see him on reality TV, then why not put him on a Strike Force card that's also going to be on TV? I understood that. I understood that he understood that, and it was necessary. It was it was necessary. That's a nice skirt. You doing a lot of bending over like that in public? Well, I would show you Knuckle Up what I was looking at, but then they changed it from a family show to another type of show. Oh, I just happened to drop this here. Anyway, you got to stay on focus. So he understood that there were market exigencies, that things that needed to happen, but also in that small exchange, I thought that I had communicated that there are ways of getting that to happen that are admirable, and there are ways of getting that to happen that are less than admirable, and I thought this was one of the less. Just my opinion. I don't want to take credit for it, but at the point where media is scoffing at you in a public forum, I think that Scott Coker was like, all right. And we didn't see too much more of Daniel Puder after. I don't want to take credit for it because, like I said, he's a nice guy. But he's just a guy who should have put more time into training and less time into the public relations marketing aspect. You seem to forget Arnold, who was the model for the individual athlete who was a marketer, was still killing himself in the gym and still winning Mr. Olympia contest. So, and there was a great kind of mummery that would occur at AKA where Daniel would leave and they would take his photo off the wall. And he'd come back and see his photo off the wall and go, what the hell? He'd go into Javier's office and get they have big blow-up photos, much like I've got the board behind me with fight on it, with fighters' photos, and he'd get his photo and he'd put it up and he'd, train, and then he'd leave and somebody would come in and go, what the hell? And they would take it out, So it's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So, I'm doing the show. Okay, please put it there. All right. So I have no idea what it is. So anyway, there were market. I cannot work under these circumstances. I can't. I can't. The old ladies with battery acid. How is a professional like me expected to work like this? So anyway, they take his photo out. They put his photo. The point is, Scott Coker had a sense of yes, Scott Coker had a sense of how to drive business, but it also seemed like he needed to be provided with a sense of when promoting that business had trundled too far into promotion, was much more a product of promotion and less a product of fight promotion. And I think somebody needs to have that real talk with Scott Coker right about now. You know, on the one hand, he's probably driven that business into a more successful space than Bjorn Rebney. That I'm not sure of. I haven't seen numbers. That I get the feeling is absolutely the case. As well as, you know, there's a point at which you need to be a team builder instead of a team breaker. And like I used to say in the old punk rock days, when somebody had offended the public protocol, very often what you would consider an outsider in the pit, in the mosh pit, somebody would marked for death. Somebody would kind of go, bing, and he'd never see it. And he just figured, man, this pit is getting super aggressive. People are banging into me. And no, it's just, everybody's banging into everybody. No, it's just you. And then pretty soon as he would protest, we'd take a particularly hard shot from somebody, like, then he'd be dogpiled. And there'd be 5 or 6 people just kicking his shit out of him. And then he would realize, hey, you know what? I've maybe crossed a line. I don't know if there's any 4 or 5 people. It seems like with Daniel Puder, it took only one guy. But it doesn't see, I don't know that he's got these people around him. But Bellator, you remember I said the World Series of Fighting used to make me feel like I was looking at bad porn? Well, that's how Bellator is now making me feel. It's pointlessly cheesy. And I'm sure he is, I'm sorry, that was the point. The point was like, Bjorn Rebney, I think, was one of those guys who were like, I don't need friends. Fuck that. You know, fuck that. I started this thing. And Scott Coker is more of a team builder, not a team breaker. He's a come along to get along guy. He's probably, all in all, it's probably better for business. Fighters like him. The people above him he's got to work with like him. He's just an easier pill to swallow than Bjorn Rebney, the stabber of dogs, allegedly. But I have to say, it's a tough pill. For example, the New York Post in the 1970s was owned by a woman named Dolly Schiff. And Dolly Schiff was an old school lefty journalist and had owned the paper for years. And the New York Post used to be a award-winning paper of note that lost money. Rupert Murdoch came in, turned it into a jizz rag, and you know, bought it from Dorothy Schiff, Dolly Schiff, turned it to a jizz rag, and it is a profitable paper that still exists today in a time when many New York newspapers are gone. So Bjorn Rebney could be at home thinking, I turned out a quality product, but I'm sure Scott Coker is I'm turning out a product. That makes money. Save that word quality. We can worry about quality when we're rich. Very frequently, often the case in America. Speaking of porn, you know, my kids came over yesterday to have an early Father's Day celebration. And the conversation went thusly. Like, for some reason, there's a friend of mine, the guy who I was telling you about a few shows ago, was like, yeah, Eugene, I'm making some amateur porn now. I was like, oh, amateur porn. Oh, you know, all right. You got, you know, you got to get lots of chicks. He goes, chicks? Apparently, it's amateur porn without chicks, which means it's amateur porn with dudes, which means it's gay amateur porn. And he's a great guitar player. He's like, man, I'm making some music videos. I'm going to send them to you. I go, sure, send them. Well, what he didn't mention is that he's making music videos combined with gay amateur porn. Well, I haven't watched it yet, but it's on the counter, And the conversation in the next 15 minutes, as soon as my kids show up to the house, was, Dad, what kind of video is this? Dad, your gun is out. Dad, is this a crack pipe? God, what are you? I mean, what other father has to answer these fucking questions? What? And now I realize I got a place that's rife with gay porn, crack pipes, and guns. Happy Father's Day, Mr. Robinson. You just put the crack pipe. First of all, let me explain. It wasn't a crack pipe. It's not even a pipe. It's a glass ball with a stem coming out of it that you could put roses in. In any case, you smell it, and it's not used. It's an ornamental item. Much like those things I used to buy as paperweights. We call them paperweights. They look like brass knuckles, but they were sold as paperweights. These are ornamental items. The gay porn is, I got a lunatic friend who sent it to me. I haven't watched it. Had to put that away. The gun my kids know about. But anyway, I digress. So this Bellator, in the spirit of gay porn, crack pipes, and firearms, this fight, I just don't, I mean, you know, what has everybody said about it? I mean, I can't even, I told you, I said I wasn't going to watch it. I wasn't going to watch it. I said I wasn't going to watch it. And apparently I fucking lied, because it's not so much that I lie, but I just say things that don't happen to come true. I watched it. I watched it. I came home. I was organizing my papers. I had some friends over. I watched it right before they showed up. And what can I say? The picture of Ken Shamrock on the ground, that said it all. Stop it. Do not, look, if Evander Holyfield can't fight, you can't let this guy, you can't, I know what Scott's doing. He stopped Daniel Puder. He should stop this. Does that mean Kimbo Slice should stop? No, I don't feel bad having watched Kimbo Slice. I feel bad having watched Ken Shamrock. What is that expression? If he be with me, who be against me? Let's change that around with Ken Shamrock. If everybody be against you, who be for you? Only people who don't like you want you to keep fighting. That should tell you something. But it was a name, and it got people to look, and that's what the TV game is about. I made you look. Hey, what does everybody call him? Dana White, Baldy. I see that on ShareDog forum thread. I call him the bald one. It's all right. The only reason I started calling him the bald one is because it seemed like he was so in love with his name in the press that he was in the press every 2 days. I said, I just can't contribute to this. So that was my code for him, the bald one. So, there were other fights on the, there were other fights on the card, but that doesn't have anything. That doesn't mean anything. There was an overall prevailing sense of Daniel Puder, and it's somewhat insulting. I mean, that's one thing that what the bald one and the UFC have done is to elevate the enterprise. Strangely enough. If you think about where it had been and where it is now, where we've gone, in a lot of ways, a UFC of the other fight organizations of today seem to be throwbacks. We used to say that about Santa Cruz, California with punk rock. They were always 10 years behind. I went to see Guar play, and I'm talking about Guar with Dave Brockie when he was still alive, so not too long ago, or about a year and a half ago maybe, and there were still guys in. I felt like I had gone back about 15 years in time. You had guys with the turned up baseball caps with suicidal written across the brim. You know, you had. I mean, it was like leather jacket vest. It was like in a hot tub time machine. My ass, man. It was like 1984, and then I saw DRI there, and it was like the same thing. And in any case, Bellator, Mike McDonald, Dan O'Connor didn't give a shit. Hugh Pulley, Eric Irvin didn't give a shit. I mean, there's a whole fight. And what this means is, I am a fight addict. I will watch guys fight behind the juniper bushes at 7-Eleven at the drop of a hat. I'm just not remembering who they are. Kyle Kurtz had a nice armbar on Adam Sella. I won't remember it. In fact, if I was not looking at it right now on the computer, which is over here on my lap, I wouldn't know. We're talking about massive don't carriage. Justin Lawrence, Sean was. I mean, on the positive side, if you lost at the Bellator 138, I'm not talking about you. Michael Chandler. Neither Kid Nate nor I had any faith that Michael Chandler, he's too much of a gift that was going to do it, but he beat Derek Campos. Yeah, that's right, exactly, Derek Campos. Daniel Strauss, who I like, ended up beating Henry Corrales with a guillotine choke. I like Daniel Strauss. Do you understand what I'm saying about this card? The card has been pewterized from the Road Warrior walking in to the fact that all of the marginal cares are matched with distinctly significant no cares. I'm going down the list. Every single care won. Chandler, Strauss, Lashley. I never saw, speaking of which, Daniel Puder lose in Strikeforce. I saw him win, call it fighter development of properties. That's what happened. That's what I saw. Patricio Ferreira, the pit bull, he won. And then these other guys, Enrique Watson, Rashad Lovelace, whoever. Which brings us to the mockery of the travesty of a sham. The Yiddish word is Chandra. The Chandra of Kimbo Slice, a.k.a. Kevin Ferguson, and Ken Shamrock. And let me tell you, this was not shameful for Kimbo Slice. I want to quote the immortal, I want to quote Tito Ortiz, who said at one point to Shamrock, "I'll fight you every week if you like. As long as they keep paying me, I'll fight you as often as you want me to fight you." I'm not going to fault Kimbo Slice for trying to make a buck. And I have to say, he comported himself quite well. Let me put that in perspective. What I mean when I say quite well is, like an Alistair Overeem, like a Czech Congo, he has learned enough ground stuff to not have panicked in that half-assed guillotine. What made it half-assed, Eugene? What made it half-assed? Well, he got the hooks in. Yep, he flattened him out. Yep, he got him against the arm-locking side. But maybe it was the presence of the gloves. I don't know. But it was a complete absence of a willingness to, I don't know. Who knows? Joe Rogan is propagating this line of the fight was fixed. It looked fake, he said. It looked fixed. It looked phony. It looked fake. It's a fix. It's phony. It looked. I'm sorry. I'm trying to mix in a line from the Maltese Falcon. It's a fake. It's a phony. It's a fraud. Ha. Huh? Yes. Yeah. It's a fake. It's a phony. It's a fraud. I don't see that. And I don't see Joe as being a straight shooter in this instance, because I see Joe fundamentally as working for the competition. Yeah, his show is supposed to be unbiased, but, his paycheck is not written by his show. That's okay. That's okay. I expect him to do what he did. But the smokescreen, it looked like it was fixed. It looked like it was fixed. If it was fixed, it would have been different.
What do you think? He got hit by Kimbo and he was like, okay, this is my turn. I'm going to take the dive. Maybe they should have had Dan Migliotta in there. I love Dan Migliotta. Yeah, Dan Killer Migliotta. After that one early stoppage, you could see he made a decision. The fuck? I went from being well-loved to being the dog. I'm getting Twitter people like, I'm going to kill you, Eugene Robinson. Okay. I put my phone number, I gave my phone number out on the Care Don't Care preview, and a few of you wags started texting me. You're texting me because you think it's funny. It's like that thing in the horror movie where the neighborhood kids want to climb into the creepy guy's house because they think it's going to be funny. So the same guys who are like texting me, so I put my phone number on the Care Don't Care preview, and then they start texting me. It's all fun and games, but you see, 4 weeks later, they forget. They forget, but I haven't forgotten. Not only that, I also have their numbers. So I text them back. What are you wearing? Who is this? You know. No, man, who is it? Who the fuck is that? Jimmy? Yeah, it's Jimmy. Jimmy getting sexy with you. Stop. I'm going to call the cops. You're going to call the cops? Can dead men use telephones? What? Who the fuck? Fuck you. And the phone rings and they're calling you. And then you pick up the phone sounding completely normal, which usually works if it's a normal time of day. If it's 3:30 in the morning, your normality is a sign that it's not normal at all. Hi, how are you? Nice to hear from you, Jimmy. Anyway, I don't think this fight was fixed. I don't think it was anything except a guy needing a paycheck. And I hope the paycheck was significant enough that he doesn't have to do it again, because nobody should have him do it again. At all, nobody. You have Scott Coker back on, he's a friend of Knuckle Up, have him back on Knuckle Up and let him know. Maybe I get a hold of him through Kogan, but this cannot happen again. Yeah, you made people look. Maybe that's all. You win a battle, you win a war, a battle at a time. Maybe that's what he's thinking. For even have spent this much fucking time talking about Bellator 138 is a Chandra. So let us speak of it no more. I'm done. Moving ahead to the UFC. Funny. The UFC. Jędrzejczyk. Say it again? Hold on. Come here for a second. Because there have been people online, the posters making fun of my Polish pronunciation. I'm gonna have for you right now a real Polish person, Where are you from in Poland?
Szczecin.
Szczecin, Poland. How do you say that in Polish?
Szczecin.
There you go. It's funny. It sounds the same in English. Anyway, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Say it for them.
Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
What?
Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Joanna. I never got that.
Joanna.
Joanna
Jędrzejczyk.
Jędrzejczyk. Did I say that right?
Almost.
Say it again.
Jędrzejczyk.
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 Jędrzejczyk. We're going to keep doing this until I get it. Say it again.
Jędrzejczyk.
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 Drzejczyk.
Jędrzejczyk. Say it again.
Jędrzejczyk.
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 Jędrzejczyk. Am I getting closer?
Sometimes.
Go do it.
Jędrzejczyk.
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 Jędrzejczyk. All right. Thank you. I did it once. So her fight We can just call her JJ, can't we? Let's just call her JJ. Otherwise, it'll be a 2-hour show of me attempting to learn remedial Polish. So, JJ. That's like the ugliest fucking nickname for JJ. First of all, this fight in total, thank you. This fight, all the don't cares on this fight were really, look, it happened at a, oh, wait, I need the water. I'm sorry. Thank you. It happened at a weird time, right? So it was, I didn't have to harass the people at Jay-Z's club with my insane demands for, look, could you turn the shit music? You mean Jay-Z? Yes, turn that shit music off so I can hear the fight. Sir, everybody, I don't give a fuck what, generally when they say everybody in your responses, I don't give a fuck about then you're in trouble, right? Because if you don't give a fuck about everybody, and they do, the numbers are on their sides. So I get the jiu-jitsu, I set up the computer, I turn it to the floor, I turn it to face the floor, and I proceed to try to do jiu-jitsu while watching the fight, which is heavily meta. I am trying to watch fighting while learning about fighting. It's like reading a cookbook while eating, except maybe even worse. Because the black belt teaching it looks over and was like, Eugene. But in terms of like the craziest thing I might have done, that is way down on the list. So I guess they're like, much like every elementary school teacher I had, at least he's quiet. I'm not standing up telling them about the McDonald's gangbang. What? I told that story the other day. My stories, inevitably, if they don't actually have people dying at the end, they're designed specifically to elicit feelings of great discomfort. I mean, that's my takeaway. So I'm telling them the story about the McDonald's gangbang, which I don't think I've told you about. So, if you got kids listening, maybe it's a time to send them out to do some yard work, which they should be doing anyway. At Sexaholics Anonymous, they make you sit there, and if it's like Alcoholics Anonymous, everybody tells their stories. So as a tourist, I was there because I was writing an article, for Science Magazine, the science thing. And so I was there as an outside semi-professional observer. And so you're thinking, cool, man. I'm going to go get some great stories. It'll be fantastic. I'm going to hear all kinds of shit. Yeah, and then you get into a room and you're surrounded by, 62-year-old men who are detailing, moist upper lip detailing of furtively delivered bathroom blowjobs. And you figure, hey, I've never been around this many Republicans ever. God damn it. You didn't see that coming, did you? The Republicans, fellatio, male-to-male. Anyway, so after a while, you're like, hey, man, you guys have talked enough. You've talked enough. Talk less. How about you talk less? There you go. You talk less and let that girl talk more. You can't say that. You can't really say that. So you're just sitting there hoping. And at some point, this girl, my name is Susie. Hi, Susie. I'm a sex addict. Yeah, whatever. And so it turns out Susie, I figure she's 19 or 20 years old. I figure she had some boyfriend. She wanted to have sex more than twice a night. and some boyfriend told her, "Oh my God, you're a nympho," and she's gonna share some fucking story with us. I'm like, oh my God. So she starts talking about working at McDonald's, and whatever. She's working at McDonald's, and she goes, and all of the essay, they call it essay, sex. It's sex and love. It's no straight S. There's no essay. I think it's SAA, and there's sex and love. I mean, there are all these derivations. And so she starts talking. She says, next, and the stories always do these quantum leaps. They do these quantum leaps of like, precipitated always by a next thing I know, she said, I'm getting it on with the guy from the fries. So the guy who's cooking the fries just stops fucking cooking the fries. He starts making out with this chick, and everybody, like all the guy on the grill and the buns, they all start like looking, right? And then he makes a go for the top. Then her top is off, and then her McDonald's shirt is open, and the titties are hanging out, and they start having sex. And then the guy on the grill is like, "Fuck this shit, I'm in." And he gets into it, and like people like beeping through the drive-through. The guy at the drive-through window is waving for people to be quiet because he's like, "Oh shit, it's a gangbang at McDonald's." So they're all having sex now. The whole restaurant has come to a complete halt. And then some people complaining about their food. Other people like, shut the fuck up about your food. And then one enterprising young man goes, "Oh shit, free food." Jumps over the counter, starts grabbing the fucking fries, starts grabbing the burgers. The guy's doing the fucking like, fuck the fries and burgers. The time is now. And then, of course, it gets serious when somebody gets into the register. So they essentially rob this McDonald's blind. They take all the money, all the fries, all the hamburgers, all the chicken McNuggets, all the apple pies, everything fucking gone. Plus, everybody's got their phones and they're snapping off photos of the gangbang at McDonald's, which I'm so shocked and surprised I haven't seen this shit online. Plus, how do you balance your registers at the end of a day like that? Your register seems to be a bit off. By how much? By everything. It's off by everything. You're all zeroed out. What the fuck happened? We don't know. They all have security cameras. They all watched the video. And she got fired. and the reason why she was at SA is because it was court required. You got to go to, hey, you're going to fucking make restitution or whatever. So I told this story. So look, me watching the fights of jiu-jitsu is the least crazy thing. The gangbang story, which immediately precipitated it, which was a welcome relief from people who did not want to hear their spouses enjoy my gangbang story or whatever, are the kids that they were there with. Now, I waited till the kids were gone. Anyway, so the fight doesn't start. I watched it on a Fight Pass because it was free on Fight Pass so I could set it up. And when did it start, though? It was really fucking weird. It didn't start on Fight Pass, and it said it started at noon, right? So I'm at noon, I come in, and I'm at Nick Hine versus, Nick Hine versus Lucas, how do you pronounce that?
Sajewski. Łukasz Sajewski.
Say it again?
Łukasz Sajewski.
Łukasz Sajewski. Something like that. So so it starts with that. This is in Berlin. So typically they're trying to put a German against a Pole, which is weird, the ways in which the UFC kind of tries to refight World War II. Because then you had two of the Axis powers, Kawajiri and Dennis Siver, fighting on a later fight, even though Siver is technically Russian, even though he's raised German, and that raises a whole nother booyah base of post-World War I, pre-World War II or alliance making, the Axis powers. In actual fact, I was pleasantly surprised, that the Berlin audience, the douchebag quotient seemed just as high as Brazil or Rio or Las Vegas. There's a certain kind of weird sameness. There's a great. They made a movie out of it. It was a Ray Bradbury story called The Accident, where a guy sees a car accident happen and he notices that the same people are at the accident. At each accident that he happens to see, then he starts to get kind of starts to dig a little bit, and it turns out that there are the same people. And what's happening is that everybody who gets killed in the accident joins this crowd of people that show up when an accident happens and make fatal moves. It's essentially a collective of ghosts. So, they say, okay, after an accident, you're not supposed to move anybody. So, of course, what do? They move somebody. And then the guy dies, and then he joins. So it's a great... I'm starting to think the UFC audience, whether it's Rio, whether it's Tokyo, whether it's Canada, they're all the same people. I've been in that audience, and I know for a fact that's not true, but maybe I've just been invited out. Maybe that's it. So I get into Nick Hines, but it doesn't matter because I didn't really care about Taylor Lapalus, Sasaki. I did care about Piotr Hallman versus Magomed Mustiev, and I said that during the Care Don't Care preview, and I picked Magomed because of this whole Chechen Dagestani thing, and I like Hallman, but he got his ass kicked in second round TKO. Excuse me. And then the guy we call Georgie B, he gets me some stuff to watch afterward. So usually I watch these don't cares but first, and then if that happens after the show, if I see somebody has gone from don't care to care, I mention them in the intro, which if you haven't figured out, I write as well. So I miss Noah Lahat and Nicholas Backstrom. I miss Alan Omer and Arnold Allen. I miss another cat, Tasumiev against Alvis, and again part of the Dagestani Chechen thing. And I picked both Kid Nate and I said these guys are gonna kill, and they did. So we're just all over Chechen Dagestani thing. We don't give a shit. So Makwan Amerikani, we're hot on it. People were like, oh, this guy's you're right. The King of Finland. I'm down with the guy. And he's first round submission rear naked choke. I dug it. But Nick Hine and Łukasz Sajewski, German against the Pole. I was really pulling for the Pole, but he got his ass kicked. Unanimous decision. But I had the first thought of the evening that, are they drug testing? Are they drug testing? Outside that, I got nothing to say about Mr. Hine. Peter Swoboda and Steve Kennedy, same thing. Swoboda? He's German. That's not such a German name. Another Axis Power. It's an Italian name. He beat Steve Kennedy, who was a Kennedy was a late substitution, rear naked choke, first round. Yeah, okay. So now I'm dialed in. I guess there was a break. We were drilling, so everybody, by which I mean me, was tuned into Seaver Kawajiri. You know what? I called this one for Kawajiri because Seaver, I didn't like how he folded so readily his last fight, and Kawajiri was my pick. Kawajiri won, but for the life of me, I don't really see Kawajiri. Winning this. It doesn't make sense to me that he did or how he did. I'm not saying that he clearly lost it. That's not what I'm thinking. But it was just a mad fight. I give a shit about this fight. However, it was a co-main event, and I guess I should. But it was all ameliorated. It was all glossed over by the JJ versus Jessica Penne fight, in which Jessica Penne was in the fight for about 37 seconds total, and the rest of it was just like, my head is going to be beaten in for the remainder of my time here amongst you. And what was great is, and this is actually, I'm not sure if you got this, but I'm not sure if you got this, but this was a sign to me. Well, let's back up a bit. I had often said about women's boxing that women's boxing would never do as well as women's MMA is currently doing. Nobody. Why? Well, because boxing fans never had any doubt in the mind if they took the equivalent weighted woman against the equivalent weighted man that they would lose. But there were all these questions about Ronda, and amazingly enough, we had 1 week without any Ronda sex news. Without her talking about her camel toe, without her talking about her worry that her titties are gonna pop out, without her talking in a flirtatious way about possibly having sex with a bald one, without her talking about her people masturbating on her vehicles. We've had, these are actual facts if you've missed it. I'm not making that stuff up. So we have blessedly gone, I think, at least 8 days without any Ronda sex news, except for the guy who came in and told me who Ronda is currently having sex with. And I was like, God damn it. You didn't have to tell me that. I don't want to know. If you came and that told me, hey, man, Glover Teixeira is fucking this woman. Unless a woman has 3 titties or is somehow noteworthy, I don't care. I do not care. I don't care. Let him win his next fight, and then I care about that. Jeff Monson's ex-girlfriend sends me naked photos of Jeff Monson. I don't care. It's like the guy sending me gay porn. I don't care. Or like Coach Leopoldo Dream Crusher Sorrell says, I don't fuck care. I'm actually going to start a website called I Don't Fuck Care. And it's going to be a companion site to It Don't Fuck Work. And I'm going to take all these YouTube jiu-jitsu coaches and their moves and show you why they don't fuck work. So blessedly, I've not had any Ronda sex news outside of that guy coming to me to my face to tell me a top secret thing of who she's having sex with. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to talk about it. Except to say the guy that she's having sex with probably has bigger things, should have bigger things on his mind than, having sex with Ronda Rousey. Woozy. Ronda, double R. Rolls Royce. In any case, he should be focused on trying to win his division in his next potential title shot. I narrowed it down a bit for you, didn't I? Anyway. So where was I? Oh, yes. I don't know where I was. I see the distorting effect of talking about Ronda's sex life is screwed me up. But I was talking about Joanna JJ. Let's just talk about JJ. What is that? JJ. A belt holder named JJ with the initials JJ and a belt holder RR. No, it was about women's MMA, where I said women's MMA. If you take RR and put her, there's all this talk about her fighting men in a competitive way with the men. Shaq's an out-fighter, but I think I could probably last only about 35 seconds. And then in his case, if you remember, I don't want to don a shillelagh. You remember my Shaquille O'Neal sex story, right? If you want me to tell it in the next show, ask me. I don't want to get Donna Shillelagh on my own show again about that woman who used to work with me at Code Magazine LA, and you had sex with Shaq, and what she said about, I'm not telling you, because you guys are good liberal with this fucking Donna Shillelagh thing. Oh, you already told that, Eugene, making me feel like the old man at the table. So anyway, I said women's boxing is never going to take off because at the end of 12 rounds, women boxers look like shit. And it's a shitty look that stays with them. Fortunately, with MMA, your target zone is something other than stomach, face, stomach, face, stomach, face. You got submissions, you could do kicks, you could do a lot of things you could do so that people largely leave the cage looking sometimes like they came in the cage. Certainly, JJ left looking very much like when she showed up. I had Coach Dream Crusher Sorrell behind me the whole time watching the fight going, man, she hot. She hot, man. Man, she hot. Okay. Jana is a lot of things, but I don't know a lot of people calling her hot. I like her energy. And her post-fight, we were talking about people who are gifted by Providence. I think she is one. I think she's at the right age. And I think she's at the right price point to actually believe that God is speaking through her. Her post-fight acceptance speech was all kinds of indications of that exactly being the case. Of that clearly exactly being the case. You know, I mean, too bad that Catholicism has ruined that country, like it's ruined many other countries. But she's been gifted and graced by providence, by providence and fate. And her post-fight speech was a mark of that. But outside that 37 seconds, where there was some threatening on the cage and attempted takedown before Penne's spirit was broken by an absolute inability to get anything going on the ground, and to withstand an onslaught. It was a savage beating to end all savage beatings, you know. I mean, and they didn't stop it, you know. Is there a smell?
No.
What? Oh yeah, the motorcycles and the cars and so on. So I mean, so this was women's MMA has arrived, and it put a lie to my original take of like, well, the women they leave kind of looking like they showed up, because we can see clearly that this is not the case. Penne, and they're like, oh, they're gonna stop the fight, they're gonna stop the fight, they're gonna stop the fight, they're gonna stop. And then in the third round, they stopped the fight, and they like, oh, a couple of guys around me who were watching were like, oh, okay. And I said, you know how you know if it's a good stoppage? I'll tell you how you know if it's a good stoppage. If the person who is being stopped doesn't complain. And they're like, no, he complained. She complained. Look, and they show it in slow motion. And the ref stops it, and they kind of holds her head. And he goes, oh, she shook her head. And the ref is holding her head, and she's like, I go, that's not a shake, man. That's a death tremor. That's not, you know. I mean, should they have stopped the fight sooner? Absolutely not. You know, we all knew where it was going. But you can't take that away from a fighter. And these are, first and foremost, like I said before, fighters, and then we could start talking about their genders later. I don't like the insistence of, oh, I'm, you know, like Prince said, never seen a pretty girl look so tough. Whatever. I'm not thinking about you being pretty. I'm thinking about you fighting. Fighting. Right? So JJ, fantastic. Great, you know, great way. I mean, she's a straw weight. You know, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of actual weight? I mean, look, there have been murmurs about her and Ronda, right? Okay, that's not going to happen, you know. But, however, what's happening here? However, even if that did happen, I think I could comfortably say that what she should be spending her time on right now. That's right. Ronda's 135, and so she's fighting at a bantamweight for a woman that's 135, and there's no way that this happens. Some of the guys I was watching the fight with were like, oh, they should. There's no way this happens. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Because you guys see, Ronda's probably walking around at 150, and she drops down to 135. JJ is 115. You know, and her ground stuff is not strong enough. She's had 10 fights. She's 10-0. She's won 4 of those fights by knockouts or TKOs. 1 submission. She's from Olsztyn, which is as far east of Szczecin as Berlin is west of Szczecin. It's not a town known for much. She's had 5 decisions. You know. So, I mean, she's been in the UFC how long? She's been in the UFC since 2014. This is her 4th fight. She's now saying that she wants a break. You know, she's fought people in other places. You don't really. I mean, the most significant one is she fought one of Charlie's Angels, also known as Kate Jackson, and retired her at PLMMA number 17. Anyway, she fought a game fight. It was great to watch. I really like JJ. I'm not caught into any of this talk about how hot she is. She's just a great fighter, got great energy, and I think she believes she's kissed by Providence. So it's fun to watch these people compete because very frequently they're unstoppable. And they don't have to do that kind of window dressing that has them losing so that they feel like they can have something to work against. You know, they're comfortable in the A position, the alpha position, because they really believe that God wants them there. Next week, I am actually traveling again. Going to be watching the fight from wherever I can. It's not so much of a happening fight for me. This is a June 27th thing. So I'll save it for the don't care preview, but you can see me sighing, you know. Look, the opening card right now is unknown fighter versus unknown fighter. I'm not making that up. Second on the card is Steve Montgomery, Tony Sims. Leandro Silva and Luis Gonzalez. Stop me if you've heard any of these ones before. Alex Oliveira and Joe Merritt. Hakron Diaz and Lavan Makashvili. Steve Bossy and Thiago Santos. Stop me if you've heard this song before. Eddie Gordon, Antonio Carlos Jr. Yep. Lorenz Larkin and Santiago Ponzinibbio. And then Lyoto Machida and Yoel Romero. This fight is significant for one reason only. Not Larkin and Ponzinibbio, who I care about, but because of Machida and Yoel Romero. If Machida loses this fight, he will now officially be lost battalionized. If he loses this fight, if he even wins this fight in a less incredible fashion, he might be consigned to the waiting room of purgatory. Yoel Romero could actually lose this fight, slipping him to 9-2, and he'd actually be okay. So, in terms of who has to win, Machida has to win. Yoel Romero would like to win. And Machida has said something pretty clever, red flagging it for Romero. He was just like, hey, I fought wrestlers before. You know, go ahead. So this will be a significant test because with what they're paying Machida, they want him to earn it. If he earns it by beating Romero, he's still in the hunt. Still in the hunt. More so now. What do you mean more so now? More so now, he's back to middleweight, but you know who's to say where he'll go? You know, I know he's walking around at a heavyweight, so he's lost. Could he avenge Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold? Maybe got a meeting coming up. Jacare Souza, whatever. Or he's like, I fought wrestlers before. Why not DC? Even though what he neglects to say is, I fought wrestlers before, and I've lost to wrestlers before. Lost to Phil Davis, lost to Chris Weidman, but he also beat Henderson. He also beat Ryan Bader. He also beat Randy Couture. So he has fought wrestlers before, but he's also lost to wrestlers. You know, but he beat a whole bunch of tough guys who are wrestlers. Anyway, that is the end of the show. What is the show called here? Where are we not number wise? 360. I'm gonna put a link up. To my Charles Manson piece that ran this week. Me and Charles Manson. You might enjoy it if you didn't already see it the first time around at Ozzy.com. Anyway, like I said, this is round number 360. I am your host, Eugene SOS Robinson. We'll see you next week. Look what you made me do!